Hi everyone, welcome to Mama Wears Athleisure. I am your host, Mariela de Santiago, a first-time mom. We focus on all things mom with tips to help make life easier and more organized for all you mamas out there. Hi everyone, today I am here with Jaren. Jaren, can you give us a little bit of information about yourself and your company? And then we'll go ahead and start talking about breastfeeding and the start of our period postpartum.
Sure. Yes. So I am a mom first and foremost. I have a daughter who's 11 now and was really my inspiration in becoming a lactation consultant. We had a great breastfeeding journey, but I just really felt the calling to support moms in this space and combine my experience both as a lactation consultant and a dietitian. So my practice is called Full Circle, and I provide support to moms here in San Diego with nutrition and lactation support.
Do you offer anything online for people that are not in the area but have some questions?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. In home is here for San Diego, but I do a ton of telehealth and video consults as well.
So, breastfeeding, such a huge topic with new moms or just moms in general, if they are breastfeeding. There's so much to talk about, and we could spend hours talking about it. But for today, I really wanted to focus on the start of your period after you have a baby. And the reason being is because you don't have anyone mention anything after you leave the hospital until you start your period. And then you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You start Googling, right? And Google tells you that your milk supply is essentially depleting. And all of a sudden, you're trying to figure out, how do I get my supply up? So, with that, if a mom is breastfeeding, when can she expect to get her first period postpartum?
So it really does vary based on how you're choosing to feed your baby. One of the biggest pieces that determines when a cycle returns postpartum is how suppressed the hormone prolactin, which is our milk making hormone, is. So if someone is exclusively breastfeeding their baby and doing lots of on-demand feeding, they're likely going to have a much longer delay in the return of their period versus someone who might, whether they choose to or whether there were other circumstances that impacted their ability to exclusively breastfeed. Maybe they're doing some kind of combination feeding. They will have a lower stimulation of prolactin. And so they might have a sooner return of their period postpartum.
How does getting your period affect a mom's milk?
So because leading up to that first period, or when you have, cycles after you start to get into that rhythm and your body is kind of finding that new groove, there's hormone changes. Right. So part of what happens with those hormone changes is that it can change the taste of your milk. And that sometimes it just kind of depends on your baby. Some babies are totally fine. Some babies are a little bit more sensitive and they might desire to breastfeed a little less frequently.
Does it actually deplete or lower the amount of milk that a mom would be producing? Or how does it change what they are producing?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky to know if it's chicken or the egg, so to speak. Is it the hormone changes that, they're causing the change of the taste of the milk? And so baby is nursing less frequently or you're pumping less frequently that then decreases your supply? Or is it the actual hormones that are decreasing the supply? Sometimes it's a combination of both. So it is possible and it is likely that there can be a little bit of a dip around your cycle. So I can talk about some of the strategies for supporting that, but it is common, it's possible.
Well, let's go straight into what are some things that would be able to help support that milk supply or help a mom kind of push back the start of their period, which I know is kind of like an impossible thing to really know when a mom is going to start a period, because I have friends that exclusively breastfeed and maybe started their period 3 months postpartum, or so I know it varies so much, but what are some things that would help with the milk supply?
So, well, the first part, is there anything that can delay the start of it? That would be anything that is going to stimulate that milk making hormone prolactin. So that is, exclusive breastfeeding. If we want to stay in what's called this period of lactation amenorrhea, so that means without a period due to lactation, it would have to be no bottles and no pacifiers, which not a lot of families are able to do or desire to do, but someone who is exclusively breastfeeding on demand and keeping their baby skin to skin is going to have a very high level of prolactin. So we see that in those women, they tend to have a much more delayed return of their period. And then in terms of how to support supply, if you notice that dip when your cycle starts to return, you can do some additional pumping to stimulate your prolactin level. You can do a lot of skin to skin time with your baby, or depending on how old your baby is, you can do like a baby carrier. But anything that will really help stimulate that hormone is going to be supportive.
And since you have the health background, we see this so often and it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. Are there any foods that moms can eat, or there's that mother's milk tea? You hear that there's these drinks, all sorts of things that are targeting moms to help build up their supply or whatever it may be. So do you have any input on maybe what foods or how they should just be eating, whether these things are true or not?
I mean, of course, I think nutrition is so important just for anyone. And I have that special lens. And it is really important for moms, especially because many of us can get very depleted both through pregnancy and through postpartum. The reality is, though, that a lot of these products that are marketed towards increasing milk supply are really just like boosters, essentially. I kind of liken it to, people say like when you're sick that you should do like orange juice or chicken soup. And it's like, maybe those are helpful, right? But what's probably really going to help you ride it out is, moving the virus through and getting lots of rest, because milk supply is a supply and demand system that is based off of our hormones. We really want to be increasing that prolactin level. So can certain foods like oatmeal is a really popular, what we call galactagogue. So foods that have the ability to help boost milk supply. Oatmeal, ground flaxseed, fennel, certain herbs like dill can be helpful. Fenugreek is a very popular supplement. Those can be really supportive options, and they're nutrient dense. So there's not a lot of harm if you do include them in your diet. As an LC, though, I would want to make sure that we're doing those types of products in addition to good pumping and lots of skin to skin and lots of other strategies as well.
So continue to help produce that milk with the baby, but also maybe some of these foods that are known or have been said to just help support that supply or add a little kick to it.
Exactly.
Do you have any other tips, suggestions, or recommendations for moms that are either on this situation, going through this situation, or, if it comes up soon?
Yeah. So one of the biggest recommendations I share with my clients is actually doing a dosage of calcium and magnesium. Of course, supplements and dosages are really specific to you. So chat with your individual healthcare provider, but I typically recommend around 1,000 milligrams of calcium and magnesium. And I recommend clients do that from like the middle of their cycle up until the first few days of their period. And that just helps support that hormone shift to help prevent any of those dips that might cause a shift in supply. So that's a really good tool to try.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so good to know.
Yes. Calcium, magnesium I think they're just great in general for moms, but specifically around the return of your period, they can be really supportive.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time to share all of your knowledge and to talk about this super stressful time for, I feel like, a lot of moms. I know that it was so stressful for me because everything Google told me was that I wasn't going to be able to breastfeed my baby anymore.
Right. That your milk supply was just going to like tank. And it's tough too. I feel like something important to touch on as well is that a lot of times I see that the return of someone's cycle tends to coincide with if and when they have to return to work. Right? Or when they return to some type of employment outside of the home. And that's because a few reasons. One is stress is a huge impact on our milk supply. And then also because we start to do more pumping and start to have less time with baby too. So that can be a factor that I didn't think to mention as well, but something to be aware of.
I noticed that the return for mine was right around the time that my son started to eat solids more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So although I can't recall exactly when, I'd say it was probably around 8 months of age or so where he was having actual meals and not just tasting food. And so at that point, Google was telling me, well, it's because your baby is eating solids, so doesn't need you anymore.
Yeah.
So that's all really good information that you are sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. They need you. Your milk is liquid gold. And of course, it depends on your individual feeding goals, but up to a year and even beyond, it's their primary source of nutrition. So
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a review if you like us.